So you only have one life, and it's not worth it to spend it grinding forever for something if it's not giving you enough in return. So, whatever way to ground yourself, whatever way you can put things into perspective and just keep checking in and make sure that what you are sacrificing is worth it.
You're listening to Creatives Prevail, unraveling the stories of creative professionals.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Creatives Prevail. I'm your host, Mike Zimmerlich, and my next guest is former booking agent and founder of growth consulting firm Root Trellis, Jess Bumsted. In this interview, we discuss how to build a successful career and the importance of diversity in live music. Let's get into it. Hey, Jess, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, thanks. We had a great conversation earlier, and I feel like every time that we chat, it's always it gets me excited about what we do, and I cannot wait to talk about your origin story because you have such an amazing background and coming from the music industry and then leading into the company that you have today. And I do want to start with asking you this question, which is both you and I have witnessed so many people over the years as far as those who actually have became successful, did what they were aspired to do. And through, whether it's a client, through advice, through colleagues, whatever the case is. And I was curious, for your sake, was there any particular types of attributes that you would adhere to that kind of a person that actually did go where they wanted to lead in their careers?
Yeah, I mean, I will say for the music industry and really any career that is as demanding or spotlight having or adjacent to the spotlight, it's kind of a requirement that you have that is what you want almost most in life, or you are very much so driven by that. So kind of endless drive for that, and and really people who are able to look out for themselves over a company, I feel is what I see very often, which is a thing that I see a lot of young people getting tripped up on, or people falling into traps where it's like I think the successful people are willing and able to make sure that their career is the one that they're looking out for, not the company that they're with necessarily. And that you are constantly kind of checking in with yourself to make sure that the scales are balancing of like the sacrifice and then what you are putting into it, and that you are ensuring that you're not burning out with no reward and all that kind of stuff. So it's independent people who are functioning within a company or on their own, whatever that is, but independent minded people who are very passion driven and sticking into it because they love it at the end of the day.
There's something to be said about complacency. I think that's a big one, is those that are, I mean, don't get me wrong, if you are happy where you're at and satisfied with the job that you currently have, kudos to you, right? Because that sometimes could be a very rare thing. And for those who aren't satisfied, I understand how comfortable it becomes to just settle for that. Mm-hmm. And even though you're dissatisfied, you are concerned about trying to do something different, or trying to move on, or trying to find other opportunities that are out there. And right. I think, like you mentioned, is that those who are successful are the ones who are doing those check-ins. It may not necessarily mean that they are necessarily dissatisfied with that particular company or role that they're in, but they are always looking out for themselves and saying, okay, is this working for me, or is it not? And if it's not, what needs to change so it is going to work for me?
Yeah, I'd say it's kind of, I've been in the agency world forever, and I think jobs like that, oftentimes the industry is not set up for you to stay in a rung. Like an assistant position is not set up to be comfortable financially, for sure. They don't do that. But it's designed for you to feel that pressure to move up or move out, kind of. So either you move up into the agency role and then keep going and hitting numbers, 'cause it's a sales role at the end of the day, or you're moving out to like operations, service industries, or service departments, and whatever that looks like. So I think exactly what you're saying, where it's like you just can't, being able to know and like look at it objectively. And one of my first bosses and mentors, is, she compared it kind of like being able to be a good agent is like also being able to integrate that into your actual own career too. So making sure that you are not only reliant on the boss on your team, the coordinator on your team, their boss, it's like if you are stuck, you are advocating for yourself, because if you still care about that career and want it, that you're looking horizontally, looking around you and seeing, okay, this person who is in charge of my paycheck and my future right now, because I'm on their team, isn't going to do it for me. Is this person in this department going to help me? How do I do this? How do I figure this out and network and do that? Like, I like to think of it as like being able to hustle for yourself and not for your company, is, kind of how that should be. You should hustle for yourself and your own career and work for your company. Do a good job, but make sure you're doing the extra mile for yourself.
So you started out interning for a number of agencies. So
Mm-hmm.
did you know early on that this was going to be the path for you, where, okay, I really wanted to get into live events? Because that was the very first thing that I noticed, was you straight up got internships at a couple of booking agencies.
Well, yeah. So it's like when I was in high school, I've always kind of been in music. I was drumming and singing, and I was bad at both of them, or just very not as good. And I didn't have the discipline to, I love to hit hard on the drums, but want to do my paradiddles to make sure I could do the drum rolls well. So, but I had some really good friends of mine who were great musicians, and I was like, how can I still do this, but not be the one on stage? Because that's just not my path. And then I started figuring out like how the music industry existed and what that looked like. Because I was like in School of Rock when I was in high school and stuff. So like, had friends who were playing shows and doing those kinds of things. So when I was going to college, I had made a decision for myself that I was either going to go to like a trade school, or I was going to go to school for music industry. I did not tell my parents that, because I was going to vocalize that if I didn't get into any music industry schools, and see how that went over. But I think I only applied to like 2 or 3 schools that had music industry programs, and Drexel was one of them, and I got into that and went to Drexel for music business, which is, helped greatly with they have kind of 2 tracks. That was like the tech side and the business side. You do both of them at the first year, and then you split tracks, I think your second year or second semester or something like that. And so I went the business track, and like Eva from Feta Booking was one of my professors
Oh,
there.
wow.
So that's how I met her. And then Communion Music was like one of my first like jobs, kind of, that started from an internship. And they were tapping our college in that department for street teaming for their series. So I was, with whatever class I was doing that street teaming. And then when we had to do our internships for the summer, I was talking to Community Music, because I was like leading that. So that's how I got in touch with Communion. That's how I got in touch with Feta. And then ultimately, that's how I got my first assistant position, or a big part of that was because Corey, my first boss, she knew Eva at Feta, because they both were like really young, like some of the only female agents to exist, who had their like back in the like when they had started their companies, had both started their own independent agencies, like roughly the same age. So they like knew each other from like coming up in like the DIY space and kind of like the punk rock scene. And they also, everyone was working with Communion at the time, so that's kind of how that came to be for me.
So when you got into Drexel, and specifically for the music business program, what did your parents say about that?
They were stoked because it was a college, so they were like, awesome. It was fun. I got a business degree, so like I'm good. Even if it was, it's a specific track, but you leave with just a business degree. So, um, I was secure in their eyes. I wasn't like doing anything too crazy or not getting an education. So they were good with that. So it was cool.
That's great. Yeah. Because it's always interesting, right? Because specifically with the music industry, some people don't fully understand on how you can have a lucrative career in the music industry. Some people feel even from a music artist standpoint, but also there's the other side too, as you mentioned, where
Yeah.
you can have a career at in booking and live events, and there's so many that are out there that it is an industry, right? It's like
Yeah. Yeah.
there's so much that you can do there, and so much that you can also transcend as well.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So okay, so you worked over at Eva, and Eva's amazing. I've known her for years as well.
Yeah.
And so then you went on to get a full-time position. So can you talk
Right.
about that? So it sounded like that you were enjoying the work that was involved while you're doing these internships.
Yeah. I mean, like I distinctly remember when I decided to think about booking agencies because I think all of my professors, like my first year or second year of college, I think almost all of my professors were men. And then I remember like we were doing just like an intro on like what makes up the live music scene, whatever that is. And I remember like Eva walking in for her section and I was like, holy shit. Like this is like is like badass woman just like came in and she's like, I'm a booking agent. This is what that is. And I was like, that's it. That's what I want to do. I remember like thinking about it because it was just like it was great. And she was amazing. So um working in that was really awesome. And then being able to I like interned with her for a little bit and uh did all of that. But then, working with community music was great. I think a through line with my career that was cool is that I've been kind of on a, I have like rarely come into a team that was fully already established or didn't have something new launching or developing like at the exact same time. Which has been I've been very lucky in that. And then it's also been like really good for my brain because I need that. So, community music, when I was working with them, they were still in a WeWork space in the finance district in New York because they had just started their US branch. I don't know how long before that. So I was like their intern while they were moving to their permanent office in Brooklyn and like renovating it. So I was helping them do that. I remember was getting their like contacts database set up and doing all that stuff. And then they would have like local reps for their different cities to like run they were doing that showcase that they did throughout the country. So once I went back to school, I was their Philly rep, helping them do that and kind of like managing the street team and then doing the shows and whatnot. So it was really great for me to be able to be there, and you're just allowed to have more of an impact because there's they just there's so much to do, and it's not like, hey, here's this job that we've had like 10 people go through and like you're kind of coming in to do like the same thing and you might cycle out of it. It was like I think I might have been their first intern. I don't really remember for the US, but it was like whatever that was. It's like I had all this. There was like so many things that I could do for the first time, which was really great. I mean, I think I like sold merch for them at one point, and I was like, I was like kind of promoting shows and meeting the artists and doing all that kind of stuff. And yeah, then that was great. And then when I knew I wanted to be working with agencies because of Eva and everything. So I remember I distinctly at several times in my life had been trying to get to Chicago like really heavy, and I really wanted to work for the Windish agency in Chicago like so bad. So I kept applying for the opening in Chicago for like when Paradigm had that listing, because I was like, I gotta go. And then I got a phone call that it was like, hey, we don't have anything in Chicago, but we have this like desk in San Diego for you. And I was like, I guess San Diego is so random. But then that's what took me over there, and it turned out to be for like one of the most like badass female agents that existed. So I was like, oh okay, cool, I'll go do that.
That's amazing. Was there anything that, so it sounded like you did so many different things.
Mhm.
Was there something in particular that you remember from your time in booking? And I'll include both your internship as well as your when you got your full time position on this, that you really had no idea that you would be involved with, or when you started doing this.
Just like aspects of the job, or
Yeah, mm-hmm,
yeah.
aspects of the job.
Oh man. I mean, I think I definitely underestimated how intense it was for sure, and the volume. Um, it's no joke. I mean, it's like you are managing so many different things, and I think what I liked about the setup of Paradigm versus, and I'm biased because I've never worked at a older agency or an agency, like WMECA, UTA, who have like more, from what I can interpret, seems like there's more structure to how their internal systems work and how people move up and all of that. Where Paradigm's thing and kind of into Wasserman's thing is like very much so like maintaining like the entrepreneurial, like independent side of that. So I've always kind of been able to be in teams where it's a blessing and a curse, right? Where it's like, yeah, like with WME, and sorry anyone who listens to this if I'm getting this wrong, um, but I believe the kind of concept is, you get those assistant emails where it's like you'd be like Jess Bumsted assist one or whatever, so you would be like on someone's desk and then you rotate. Where I came up, it was very much so like I was the assistant for Corey. So I was her assistant. Everything that came through, like I was in it and I was working on that project and I was fully inundated. So you weren't like, it wasn't defined. Like my assistant job did not look the same as somebody else, because our roster didn't look the same. We had a much smaller roster than a lot of other agents, but it was like, you know, Imagine Dragons. You were doing like arenas and like, I think by the end I was leaving, they were doing the stadiums. Like it was like, bigger things. And then we also had smaller developing artists. So it was like, and then the way that our team was set up was like we were very involved with the teams. So we were helping with like a lot of different aspects and doing different stuff. So it was there's endless work. I think the biggest probably work function that I have then told assistants while I was hiring them is like you have to get used to like your to-do list will never be over. Like if you at the end of the day have like cleared your to-do list and you're like, I did my job for the day, like you missed a lot of things. Like, it's
Yeah,
like
I can see that.
yeah, it's like it's shifting your mindset into like you're gonna have to, you'll never feel like everything is done, but you have to feel like everything's okay. I'm not missing something that has like a deadline of like
Yes.
tonight or tomorrow
Yes.
morning. Like it's like you have to adjust into like existing in chaos and like managing that. So, like I was very much of the mindset of like, oh yeah, I can do anything, like whatever, like when people were like warning me about like, oh yeah, this job's gonna be like really intense, like, and I was like, whatever. And you can, and I can, and I did it and it's gotten me in great places, but it's if someone says that to you, listen and just prepare yourself to be doing like 10 times more than what you're even expecting that it could be.
Speaking of expectations, I wanted to flip it a little bit to the expectations from the client side, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I know, representing artists for a very long time, right? That setting those expectations of what the roles are for each and what each needs to bring to the table is extremely important.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to ask you that from your years of doing this type of work, what were some things that you wish that, especially in this case specifically music artists, knew about the role that you had?
Um, I think a lot of artists know this, but I think it's really like I don't know, where I've seen some dynamics that like I didn't love, and like for context, like I when I was an agent, I was a festival agent, so I had chosen to not go down the path of having my own big roster where I was like maintaining those relationships because it wasn't like what spoke to me with the way that like my brain works and how I need to like have a project that I work on and then I finish and then I move on to another project. Um, so I wasn't the one who was like necessarily maintaining these relationships for like 20 years, but the most successful teams are the ones that I liked to work with the most, are the ones where it's like everyone has a relationship with the artist. It is a team mentality where it's like if you get an agent, like you didn't make it. Like that's not like, oh, I made it, I got an agent. It's like, which I think is really important because you have to be protective of yourself. You have to make sure that like that's the right fit, and that like just it's kind of like I don't know, anything where people think like, oh, I got to this thing and now like I've got it made. It's like, no, that's like when the work starts, kind of like you're hustling and then you got the representation, and it's like you have to make sure that you're on the same page, and it's like you're listening to those people about like what their professional insights are and like what their experience is, and you're listening to them. But I think it's important, like, I mean, my biggest piece of advice is like have a relationship. If you're an artist, like have a relationship with your agent. Have a relationship with obviously with your manager, but like know your label guy, know your agent, like know the assistant on your agent team. Like it's, I had a few artists who like were just like amazing. I'll K-Flight, amazing. She was amazing. She knew me and our whole team, and like we were at a different artist, same management company that we booked to, and like she came up and thanked us and like was like Jess and our coordinator, and was like, thank you so much for everything that you do. And it's like that means so much to me being on the team, but also like I think it's important for that artist because it's like you never know which relationship might go sour in your team. So being able to not only rely on your manager, being able to like have your agent to be able to be like, hey, like as a human, I'm worried about this. Like, what do you feel about this? But then also to be able to try to break down those walls so it's like everyone can sit in the same room and have those things, and there's not too much like, because there is ego of like stepping on toes or wanting to be like the closest with the artist sometimes or whatever that is. So it's like I just would like highly encourage everybody to like, if you get an agent, be friends with them, know them, make sure that you can maintain a relationship with them. A lot of agents do, a lot of them do. That's not like an uncommon thing, but I would just like emphasize that. And on the flip side of that, make sure too that you keep it professional at the same time, because you also don't want to get yourself in a spot where like it is business at the end of the day, where if you need a different agent or if you need to make a tough call, that you're not getting bogged down with, same thing with like friendagers kind of thing, and it's like that's great, but like it is your career. Everyone is making money off of you. So you should have the power and you should know that. And like, while you respect the team that you're working with, like it's that fine balance of knowing those people, keeping enough of a boundary where like if you do need to make a business decision where it's maybe not in favor of someone on that team, or it's you need to ask for a senior agent to be added onto the team, or look at a different agency or whatever that is, that you're not feeling like you're betraying your best friend at the same time, because that's not fair to you and that's not fair to the person too.
That is really, really hard to do, but it's so important. I've known like because it's you, especially as you're building that relationship, and both on both sides, as the artist and as well as the representation, it's really hard not to take some of these things personally when there's a conflict that comes up, because you get so emotionally invested into themselves and their careers and who they are as a person, like you said, that a personal friendship oftentimes comes out of it.
Right.
And you're right that there comes to a point in time where it's eventuality, right? In any kind of relationship where there is going to be some sort of conflict, or where the one person is not satisfied with the arrangement, or there's a new opportunity that is now arisen that you have to now address. And I think that in addition to, like you said, making sure that things are being set professional, I think just as important, if not more important than that, is the honesty and transparency, where even if the other person is no longer going to be a part of what you're doing, like if I'm going to put in the position of the artist, right, is that if you are an artist and you have this amazing opportunity that is coming up, that you that the person that's already representing you, for whatever reason, cannot continue on with you. That there are situations where that could occur, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just being honest and transparent with them about the situation, and being respectful, acknowledging the work that they've done for you this far.
Right.
And I'll say even this too. This is not necessarily should be considered an expectation, but something that you should also think about in general is there something that you can do for that person to help them?
Right.
Can you, if you truly believe in the work, if you have that good of a relationship and you truly appreciate the work that they've done for you so far, and would like them to continue with you, or just want to see them succeed, what are the things that you can do for them? Sometimes you can take them along the ride.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't, and that's okay too. But maybe there's something else that you can do for them too. Maybe you can help them find a new opportunity of some sort, or make sure that they're at least being acknowledged for the work that they have done for you. And believe me, as somebody who's represented artists now for, I said 16 years, I realize it's actually now closer to 18 years. That means everything. We know that there are times where we are just a stepping stone for the next thing.
Right.
But to show that kind of appreciation, or to at least try to see if there's a way to take us along with you, that means everything.
Yeah, I think it's separation of personal and professional is nearly impossible in this industry, and I think it's because people, when they talk about it, they think about it in the traditional sense of like separating like a work-life balance, which I think with our industry, especially if you're an artist, that just has to look different for you. It's like I don't think it needs to be like, oh well, like I work this specific amount of hours, or I do this specific amount of things, whether that just means that you like make sure you have some friends who aren't in the industry, or you make sure you're taking care of yourself in like a different way, or whatever it is, like it can look very different for different people, which I think is a huge part of it, because it's like you have to be able to like have those conversations regardless of how they go, and walk out of that and still like it's going to be like a breakup, and it's going to feel like a breakup sometimes, and it's like not going to feel great, but it's like hopefully you've established enough of like an identity outside of that team and that work that you don't feel like lost. But I do think that's something that you just don't be mean to anybody, and don't burn bridges, because like you don't know where you're going to run into them again. And also like you don't want to regret that 5 years later, where it's like that person actually did a lot for you, and like you just completely like burned them when you left, and then they come around again because they end up working for the same management company that you're with now, because they're the great manager. And it's like you can always mend bridges, I think, but it's just like, why not? Don't burn them down in the first place.
I totally agree. And it's funny because looking back, some of my closest friendships that I have now was because of 80/20 Records, of the record label that I had. So it's and I've gone through a lot of ups and downs with these people, but these are the people that I like have the biggest connection towards, and I couldn't imagine my life without it. And I met them, and because of the label, they many of them worked directly with me for the label, and I cannot imagine my life without them. And but it is really tough to keep it professional, like you said, while having that kind of that emotional connection to them too. It's a really, really tough thing. But like you said, at the end of the day, it's I would say this in general, honestly, is just don't burn your bridges, because you just never know where people are going to lead in life. But at the same token too, it's you have to understand that it's at the end of the day, we're all people. We're all going to be flawed. We're all trying to figure things out as we go and so forth. But I feel like at the end of the day, it's that having that respect for the other person is just everything. It's just you know, it's that old adage, right? Treat other people how you want to be treated, and it's so
Right.
true with this too. And believe me, it's easier said than done, but you can't take it personally when people move on from things.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I have some of the closest friendships that I have are people that are not no longer directly working with me, but we still do lots of different things together. We still support each other in all kinds of different ways.
Yeah, and yeah, a little caveat to this is also don't want to take away from like there's a bunch of people who are not great out there, who you might feel for whatever reasons that you feel scorned by, because justifiably so, if they do something that is like unsavory behavior or you don't like the way that they represent in your business or whatever that is, and it's like don't mean to say you always have to be. I think you should always be the bigger person so that you don't have to uh it's not worth your energy to they go low, you go lower. But like if someone wrongs you too, by no means am I saying they'll be like thank you so much for your service, like I love you, and leave. It's like I think when wrong things happen in the industry, it's important that you stand up and say who, where, and why, so that doesn't happen to someone else behind you. But in general,
Absolutely,
yes, if that doesn't
absolutely.
happen, keep it. And it's not good for you and your brain and there's so much negativity out in the world that it's like where you cannot foster that for yourself, just try not to. Keep your head up.
Absolutely. So, I did want to transition. Not necessarily that this was the reason why, but I did want to talk about, of course, your transition into running your own company
Yeah.
because. So you have a business consulting company called Root and
Mm-hmm.
Trellis, which I love that name, by the way. So it's
Thank
such an awesome
you.
name.
Yes.
And this is completely different from
Yeah.
everything you've done up until this point. So
Mm-hmm.
can you talk about more about why, first of all, you decided to start your own venture, and then also something that is very different in comparison to what you've done up to this point?
Yeah. Well, I think throughout my career, as I mentioned, I've like kind of been coming in at when at least some aspect of the job was new or was being built. When I went to Paradigm, it was Love Loud Festival. Dan Reynolds from Imagine Dragons decided he wanted to start that whole foundation and festival. I think it was my first year. So I think he was like a month into it. I feel like I was like a few months into
Wow.
my existing as an intern there, that we were like last minute putting together an entire festival. And I was, very much so in more of like an admin perspective at that point. But I had been working on that festival since the inception of it all the way through to like a year or two ago or something. Um, so, we were creating this like amazing thing that was for LGBTQ plus youth, specifically in Utah. Sorry, notification. Specifically in Utah for like the high suicide rates. In that area, and it was such a crazy amazing thing to be a part of. And that was kind of like a startup in its own sense, and that kind of project. And I had been able to work with a few different of our artists on their own little festivals that they were doing on a smaller scale, but building those brands out and like building things is what I really like. And then obviously COVID hit, and understandably the live music industry was hit very hard very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So was amongst the furloughs of that, and I decided to move to Chicago. Finally got to move to Chicago, which I've been trying to do for like my whole life. And I that was right when all those smaller agencies that were splintered off of like the kind of the ruins of Paradigm started popping up. So TBA, Arrival, Mint, all of those. And I had reached out to a friend of mine who was an agent that I worked for a lot at Paradigm, who had been starting. He was one of the founders of TBA, and he was like, "Oh, hold up, I've got a friend who's starting at a different company based in Chicago. Like, he'll love you." And then I got in touch with, I think it was Eric Sells first, and then got in touch with Matty Secco. And so I came in, and then Ali Hedrick and everyone, and I came in as the first employee of Arrival, which is now Rome. Pre-launch, it was like the six partners and then myself and then our marketer. And so I came in and it was like, again, building, getting them started, like figuring out, I was like A/Bing databases for like which system that we were going to use for shows. I was like helping to create like, what does the assistant position look like? What does the coordinator position look like? That was when drive-in shows were happening. So I was helping to figure out like our ticket mapping situation. How are we going to market? Like all those kinds of things. Building. And then I was there for a year and a half, 2 years, something like that. And then it was like built. I mean, it wasn't finished obviously, but we had several more rounds of hires from there and all of that. And then, I found myself in a position of kind of like, I could continue on. I think I was like an agent / coordinator, and I had like a band that I had signed and was looking at other ones. And I was like, do I want to continue on signing bands and being an agent, or do I want to like keep building stuff? And then I got the call from my old boss at Paradigm, it was then Wasserman, which is now the team. But yeah, I got a call that they had a festival department that I worked with our old festival department at Paradigm, and they were completely restructuring it. And it had been existing for, I think a year, but they were just kind of like going. It was like 3 agents, 2 assistants, and they were just going, and they needed someone to come in and like build out the infrastructure for what the actual department would look like. So, internal, external communications, like tracking systems, all that kind of stuff, like how this is all going to work, like what is our like legal templates, like all that stuff. So I came in with the expectation that I would be coming in as the coordinator to get everything set up and then move into an agent role. And I was very excited about it because transparently, the idea for my agent position was meant to be more, again, in like building events, like building different specific events for artists. So when I came in, I built the department up and, did all this infrastructure and did what I was going to do. And it was amazing. It felt awesome. I was like working with old colleagues again and making sure that systems were great, making sure there was solid handoffs and for assistance and stuff, so that there was like clear, because I firmly believe that a lot of the really bad work dynamics that happen within our industry is because there is no transparency or accountability for handoffs in role responsibilities with managers. So a lot of times assistants get the blame for things, or the pressure falls on the lowest person on the totem pole for errors that should have been caught higher up. So, trying to bring that into what I was doing. And then I was promoted, which was great, but I did not go into the building role. We ended up doing where I was doing I think by the end of it, I was doing all of Canada except for a handful of accounts, and I was the rock person, which was great. And I felt like continuously looking at, there's like ways that I can look at this as building. But then ultimately, after like 2 years, a few years being an agent, I was like, I just felt like that role was a little bit too much. Like I wasn't building anything anymore. I felt like I was working on things, but it was very sales heavy, which is fine. It just isn't for the way my brain works. Like I need to like build. I had been like brought in at so many different levels of my career at that point, all the way back to Communion when I was their first intern. I was helping them build out like, even just like little things. I wanted to like build things again. So I was just randomly connected with a woman I'm in Denver now, and she was out here who was trying to build out she was a solo practice therapy psychologist, and she wanted to build out a company and build out her team in that respect, and then also build out programs to serve first responders and other populations out here. And I got connected with her and kind of took like a bit of a leap of faith to go into this and be able to like take those skill sets that I've learned building and growing and doing that stuff and creating my own company where I can just do that for people. So been doing that for a year now. Have a few different teams that I'm working with, getting my kind of formula underway, but it's been a real great moment to be able to look at the themes of my career and the themes that stuck with me and fed me, and work with my brain and work with the things that drive me. Like I mentioned before, it's really important to know where your passions are and what is like lighting that fire under you. And for me, it's it's building things that people believe in. Like I want to be able to see somebody else's vision and help them get there and build out that infrastructure. I love music and I love being able to work on with companies to be able to do that. But it's really just building stuff and extra special bonus points when it's cause driven, mission driven, or companies that are just trying to exist within a space and just do it in a more equitable way.
That's amazing, and we have, like I said before, we had so many incredible conversations, and you are so brilliant. So like you have so many incredible ideas, and we always have these incredible conversations, and so to me, it's just like natural progression for yourself to start something like this.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been cool.
I did want to make sure that we talked about your involvement with Book More Women. So can you talk
Yes.
more about that?
Yes, Book More Women is kind of exactly where I just left off on my explanation of it. It's the they are the dream of mine. It's something throughout my career that I've always advocated for and made space for. It was trying to prop up and encourage younger people in the industry, but specifically women and gender diverse people, to be able to have a space. Because I was extremely fortunate in my career where the first half of my career was just I've always worked with women, so not to say love you all, everyone I worked with, but not to say that there wasn't their own challenges with just the intensity of the industry that we worked with. But I wasn't really running into a lot of like misogynistic boundaries because like I was working under like I would every once in a while, but like I was working under such like fierce women who had, I mean, my first boss, like she, just like Eva, is like they came up like when it was very difficult. There was like no women in this scene, so you really had to fight to be able to get in there. So, me being able to be even like an ounce comfortable was because of the work that they had done. So, being able to be on the same team of someone who had carved her way so much, like I would see some of the things that she would experience, but like I was working under her. So then throughout my career, I wasn't, someone's assistant anymore. And I've never been one to be quiet. Whenever I found myself being in a room where I'm like, this doesn't feel right. Why? What's the theme with all of you and then me? So I always try to make room to have time where my door was always open to female and non-binary assistants who could come in and talk to me, because I noticed all the time how there was not always someone who was my level or above whose door was open for me that would experience the same things. So Book More Women, right towards, while I was being an agent, I was talking to all of my beloved buyers across all of the different festivals that I worked with. And I was so fortunate to work on accounts with amazing people who cared a lot about equity and really were mindful of what their lineups looked like. But I oftentimes was sharing posts with them of the festival edits that Book More Women would do, which I'm not sure if people are listening are familiar or not, but they're the account that would take off the names of lineups that had only cis men on them and leave up the artists that had one female or gender diverse artist would be left on there. And some of those lineups are horrific and were so bad. And it was like there was no one left on the lineup, or there was like 5 names or something left on there. And it was such a real issue because it's like it's so important. Like you're curating what people see, and it's all like cyclical, so it's like you're also responding to things, but then you're the one who's curating it, so all of that. But I was sending that out so much, and I thought it was so important, like that like visual representation. And then I was put in touch with that team right when I was leaving Wasserman, which was crazy. And then I hit them up again. I knew that they were working on a big relaunch, and I hit them up again, and I was like, all right, I want to get like more involved. And so now I'm on the team as the director of operations, and I am working with them. There's 2 other core people on the team, Abby and Nico, who are amazing and have been doing this for a long time. Abby founded this, I think it was 8 years ago now, and we've just relaunched where we are fiscally sponsored under Fractured Atlas right now, as we work towards our independent nonprofit status. And we are doing a few different things, and we have, a program that we started that I'm really proud of and I'm really excited about. It's our industry partnership or festival partnership program, where it's an accountability partnership where we work with different festivals to sign a public pledge that they are going to commit to a measurable and tangible goal to increase diversity and continue doing the work that they're doing. And then we spotlight an artist. Eventually, we will do this in a different equation where it's a little bit more proactive on our part. But for now, we're spotlighting an artist who's on the lineup. And yeah, it's a way for festivals to participate in the narrative and commit to doing better and doing the work. So we had our first two go up this week. We went up with Tree Fort, which is really exciting.
Nice.
And then 2 weeks ago now, we went up with Lighting in a Bottle as our first partner. So
that's incredible.
Yeah, it's cool. We have that. There's a podcast, and there's workshops that are going to be coming up, and different things that we're going to be trying to elevate and tell more of the story and continue to use data to figure out what's going on.
That's amazing. Well, I'll definitely make sure that we put in the show notes all about Book More Women, and of course as well as Root Trellis. And I do know that we do want to make have to wrap things up, unfortunately.
Oh, yes.
So there's a couple of fun questions for you. I'll do these almost rapid fire, if you will.
All right. I think I got it.
First concert that you ever went to?
Oh, God. First concert? Oof. So long ago. Jesus, I don't even remember what my first concert was. I do know I found this forever ago. I think one of the first concerts I went to without like my parents was him from like forever ago. I found the ticket stub for my first 9:30 show. I was definitely a young person amongst the crowd there, but yes, that was an early memory.
Wow. What if you could put together your dream 3-act lineup? What would those 3 acts be?
My dream 3-act lineup. Oh man, God, these rapid fires. Now I'm just thinking about time constraints. Let's see. I think I'm gonna go with, let's do Amyl and the Sniffers, just because love so much. And then let's do Lambrini Girls, because I've got Rome on the mind. Great agency, great team, all great things. And then there is this band that is playing. They're playing Tree Fort, and they're so fantastic. And I just saw them, and Bonnie Trash. Super cool. Bonnie Trash was amazing.
None of those artists I've heard of before, so I'm definitely gonna have to do my homework after this.
Oh yeah, sure. No, they're so rad.
Sure.
I think it'd be really cool to have all of those on there.
Okay, so last up for you, certainly not least, is if you were only able to give one piece of advice, what would that one piece of advice be?
Really? No, I think to tie it back to the beginning, I think it would just be find whatever you need to do to keep your feet on the ground, so that you can consistently check in with yourself and your needs. So you only have one life, and it's not worth it to spend it grinding forever for something if it's not giving you enough in return. So whatever way to ground yourself, whatever way you can put things into perspective, and just keep checking in and make sure that what you are sacrificing is worth it. That way you don't, none of us want to wake up 10 years later and be like, shit, I should have done that differently. Just don't regret your decisions, and make sure that you are I mean, that's a huge thing to say, but if you, I firmly believe if you're able to find a way to stay grounded and check in with yourself and have a baseline that you can come back to, that you can make the decisions within your career and the track that you're on, that you feel, at least if 10 years down the road you're like, maybe I should have done something else, you can feel confident in the fact that along the way you had been making those decisions consciously. And that's the best way to do it, I think.
I couldn't agree more. Well, thank you so much, Jess, for being on the show. I really do appreciate it. I also do want to do a quick shout out to our mutual friend, Kelly from Plug and Play Jewelry. Kelly also has been a guest on the podcast before. I highly recommend to check out her episode, but she was the one who essentially got us connected. So
Yes.
quick shout out to Kelly.
Big shout out. She's the best. Go check out Plug and Play Jewelry. They are also the best things ever. So
They're super cool. But anyways, thank you so much again. I really do appreciate it.
thank you. I appreciate you. You're the best.